Fuck, man. Could you slow this down some more? Your connection's unstable. Yeah, with you bombarding it, it's sure unstable. So we wasted about 15 minutes of pedophiles' time today, apparently. How do we know? Because our number one fucking viewers are pedophiles. So we still don't know the numbers from the last 4 days here. Alberta's got over 4,000 cases. They got less people. I remember 4 nationals can come here now. Well, they could before too. And now the Americans could come here, but we can't go there. Okay.
I was recommended to attend the university to teach by a number of groups. After I went to Kabul University, no one was banned from attending the university, but there was no one. No student or teacher was seen on campus. A few days later, we were again asked by an official letter to come to the university to study. Days ago, the Taliban officials did not divide us by gender in the university, but later they informed us that the Taliban urged the university's directors to make separate classes for students.
Taliban spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid earlier said that women could study in different fields, including the health sector, policing, and prosecution, within the framework of Sharia or Islamic law. He said that women should be offered all rights within the Islamic principles, as they are a vital part of society. West Africa's main political and economic bloc has suspended Guinea's membership following the military coup that ousted President Alpha Condé. Leaders from the Economic Community of West African States demanded a return to the constitutional order and Condé's immediate release. They also agreed to send a high-level commission to Guinea as soon as Thursday. The bloc did not announce immediate economic sanctions against Guinea. Prior to the virtual meeting, Guinea's coup leaders freed dozens of political prisoners in the country's capital, Conakry. Things appear to have returned to normal in Guinea following the coup, with banks, shops, supermarkets, and other businesses reopening. Ding Xiaolong is a subsidiary of China Harbour Engineering Company in the West African country. He says that the main market in Conakry is back in business, with stalls stockpiling their normal supplies.
There's no scramble resulting from a shortage of supplies. Prices are relatively stable. Before the coup, the price of rice was 90,000 Guinean francs per bag of 5 kilos. That's roughly 58 yuan. The price has not changed following the coup. The price of beef was 80,000 Guinean francs per kilo before the coup. It's remained the same.
There are more than 28,000 Chinese citizens living in Guinea. The Chinese companies operating in the country are mainly engaged in mining. Ding says that Chinese investments are unlikely to be affected by the coup, with the military issuing a statement telling mining companies to carry on as normal. Coming up, Hong Kong's relaxing quarantine rules for residents returning to the city.
Would you like to receive the latest news updates about China and the rest of the globe? Tune in to the Beijing Hour every weekday for the latest in politics, business, sports, and entertainment from a Chinese perspective. Subscribe to the Beijing Hour for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
It's 11 minutes past the hour. Hong Kong's relaxing its COVID-19 quarantine rules for returning residents. And Chung has more.
The Return to Hong Kong scheme is relaunching. So that means that Hong Kong residents traveling from Macau and the Chinese mainland can return to Hong Kong without having to undergo mandatory quarantine. Now, proof of a COVID-19 test is still necessary, and it must be taken within 72 hours before arrival. And there is a daily quota set for 6,000 residents, and that's split up among the 3 entry points into the cities. And these people must apply for a quota through an online booking system. But there are exemptions for this scheme as well. Several places considered risky for the virus will be excluded. Now, this scheme originally launched last November, whereby Hong Kong residents from Macau and Guangdong province could return to the city without having to quarantine. And this was expanded to the rest of the Chinese mainland in April. But this scheme was largely suspended last month as a measure to prevent an outbreak from entering into Hong Kong's borders. So that meant that only residents from Guangdong province could enter. And authorities say the scheme is resuming now because the pandemic situation has stabilized in Hong Kong, Macau, and the Chinese mainland. Meanwhile, starting next week, non-Hong Kong residents can also enter the city.
Clear skies. Dry morning in Toronto. We could see some late day showers. We're talking less than a millimeter. Better chance for showers, and even a couple of millimeters will be off to the north. 21 degrees tomorrow, 22 degrees on Friday with morning sun and increasing cloud. Best chance for late day showers Friday will be Hamilton to Niagara. Tonight down to low 14 degrees. Mainly clear downtown Toronto, 24 degrees. This is 680 News.
Ford government developing a vaccine certification app in-house instead of contracting it out.
The government has said the app will be ready in 6 weeks. This is what you'll eventually use to show you're vaccinated in order to enter some businesses. You'll get a QR code, which
Listen to how you form sentences. You're retarded, bro.
Building it in-house instead of contracting it out to tech companies, as other provinces have done. Experts say this approach could be.
We've been waiting 7 years for online social services. We've been waiting 18 years for electronic health records.
Why do we need to recreate the wheel? Why can't we utilize the technology?
Because it's Ontario. Ontario.
Get those passports into Ontarians' hands sooner rather than later.
Until the app is ready, Ontarians in 2 weeks' time will be required to show their vaccine certificate and some photo ID. I'm Richard Southern.
New spicy chicken McNuggets have arrived at McDonald's. So McNuggets fans, will you walk on the spicy side?
Photo ID. Photo ID. That you cannot get renewed in this province.
Medicines are more readily available. Help now comes from this website called Oxygen CDMX, a Spanish acronym for Mexico City. It was created by 23-year-old medical student Nayoli Victoria Garcia. Her website lists stores that sell or rent oxygen tanks and concentrators. It indicates whether home delivery is possible. Nayoli got the idea from her father, a doctor who works with COVID-19 patients.
My father works in a district with little access to resources. He realized that he needed to get oxygen to his patients. I said, well, there must be a way to
When everybody saw this happening in Hindustan 6 months ago, you did nothing.
So I contacted a friend.
Now you're heroes. Oh, we waited till way too late. We're heroes.
Now, Mexico City's COVID-19 patients and their families have access to updated listings showing 70 locations where oxygen supplies are available. The city government promotes and uses its database. Demand for oxygen this year is lower than in 2020, partly because around 50% of the capital's population over the age of 18 have received both vaccines.
No, that's not how
Also,
it works.
many residents
You just linked together two things that aren't linked together.
And sanitizing hand gel. The manager of this hospital
And in fact, you deprecated what you just said the work this guy did.
website is a great help. Staffers contact her daily for updated supply information.
They do that with all the distributors in the metropolitan area. Before, people were forced to go looking from place to place, and that only made it more difficult for patients to get oxygen.
Many COVID patients are grateful that in this megacity, the Oxygen CDMX website is helping them breathe a little easier.
That was Frank Contreras reporting. U.S. President Joe Biden is expected to present a strategy to curb the spread of COVID-19 and increase vaccinations. The United States, which leads the world in cases and deaths,
it's two separate things.
Away from infections driven by the Delta variant. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says Biden will lay out a six-pronged strategy involving the public and private sector to help get the pandemic under control. Psaki confirmed that the federal government cannot institute a broad vaccine mandate. Said steps are needed to prepare schools and communities for vaccinations. The United States has recorded around 650,000 COVID-19 deaths and more than 40 million infections. Data from the CDC shows that 62% of Americans have received at least one vaccine dose, and 53%, or 176 million people, are fully vaccinated. Russian officials say the international community has reasons to worry about the biological labs that are run by the U.S. military. Investigative Committee Deputy Chairman Alexander Fedorov says that U.S. biological infrastructure near Russia is undertaking uncontrolled and unrestricted expansion. Other officials in Russia have said that the deadly microorganisms created or studied in these U.S. and NATO military biological programs could accidentally be released into the environment, potentially causing mass casualties among civilians. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up, a deadly prison fire in Indonesia. The Beijing Hour. The Beijing Hour. The Beijing Hour brings you an hour of comprehensive news and information.
Advance polls will be open September 10th to 13th. If you prefer, you can apply to vote by mail, or you can vote at any Elections Canada office before Tuesday, September 14th, 6 p.m. Check your voter information card for all the ways you can vote.
For the official information on voting and/or health and safety measures, visit elections.ca or call 1-800-463-6868. It's our vote.
Over 40 inmates at a prison in Indonesia.
This is 680 News. It's political fight night in Canada, so 5 major party leaders are preparing to square off in the French language debate being held across the river from Parliament Hill.
The so-called knockout punch in an election debate is rare, but you can expect leaders to land a lot of body blows as they try to take their opponents down a notch in such a tight race in the polls.
When it comes to the imprisonment of drug offenders, the Institute for Criminal Justice Reform released a statement saying that the government must have better narcotics policies. And instead of putting drug offenders in prisons and seeing them as criminals, they're saying the government should focus on treating them in rehab centers. This will significantly...
Because marijuana makes you have heroin withdrawal. Right, officer? Right, officer? You swore to that when you wrote it on my file. Regina v. Parker, Terry Parker, this case from the 90s, or a couple cases, which OntarioCourts.ca, something 2000, 200-page ruling. And what the jurist says is the only reason marijuana was prohibited in Canada is because of the United Nations Narcotics Control Treaties. That's it. There's no other reason. So it's just some foreign entity that isn't even a country telling you you have to do it because... So you've missed the point. Oh, we got to start putting them in rehab so we can have a medical system just like Canada and the United States has. No, you've fucking completely missed the point because you're retarded. You're the same people that invited the United States to spray paraquat on your fucking crops. You wonder what's wrong with you. You're retarded.
Must pay attention to prison conditions and also start using non-imprisonment alternatives.
That was Silkina Alawalia reporting. Italy's biggest fruit...
So, the Netherlands, like 10, 15 years ago, closed 8 penitentiaries because there's nobody in them. You guys don't know what you're doing.
National Year of Fruits and Vegetables. Hermione Kitson reports.
The kiwi fruit of Cesena is some of the produce taking center stage at this year's Mac Fruit Fair, an exhibition designed to connect producers, buyers, and consumers worldwide.
It's a good instrument to invite the customer from all over the world to see, like we are here now, to see the fruits directly in the field.
Kiwis are Italy's biggest export fruit to China, alongside blood oranges and lemons.
Really? Because we buy all that shit from China. You're fucking serious. Hey, what happened to all these black-owned business loans and grants and all this other shit? The race-based data, health data, all these other things. You're not talking about none of that, eh? Not these guys, these guys.
The terms was for the 2 years ago, but then we had the lockdown and the COVID, so everything frozen again.
This year, 110 companies from 20 provinces in China are also participating in the expo in a bid to strengthen trade ties between the two countries at a difficult moment.
Italy started exporting kiwis to China in 2008, and in the following 10 years, demand grew significantly, but since the COVID pandemic, shipments have slowed down.
It's a pity because we took a lot of years to build our image of quality and reputation, so we have to recover ground.
Italy has instead focused on the European market, with fruit and vegetable exports up by 8% in the first quarter of 2021. The sector is now only second to wine in terms of economic import, and producers say that despite the challenges, recovery.
That was Hermione Kitson reporting. In China, traditional medicine veterinarians have been gaining in popularity in major cities, using old methods to give pets a new lease on life. Feng Yilei has more.
An 8-year-old poodle suffering from a lumbar injury is receiving this acupuncture therapy. This typical TCM method as part of the
Toronto, better chance to the north. Friday, we've got partly cloudy skies and 22 degrees, and it's going to be mainly sunny and warm on Saturday, 26 gusty winds, and then Sunday watch for on and off showers and a high of 27, Humidex 32. We're going to cool back down to seasonal for Monday. Tonight, down to a low 14 degrees. Downtown Toronto, mainly clear, 23 degrees.
Coming up at the bottom of the hour, breaking news from Peel Public Health, urging anyone who attended the Bronco Academy hockey tournament in Peel over the August 27th and 29th weekend to get tested for COVID after several confirmed cases. The latest straight ahead.
It's you, that we're really looking forward to seeing again. Porter Airlines has been safe and sound on the ground for over a year. Keeping our planes in top shape has been good,
Friday to Sunday.
But seeing you will be even better. Join Porter on board again, starting
They own
now.
their planes. They've had them parked this whole time. They're the only ones that own their own planes.
Flyporter.com. Porter, flying refund.
So the airlines in general, commercial airlines, are not businesses. Investing in them is foolish. They're not set up to make a profit. They're set to undercut each other over and over and borrow money till they can't anymore. And then there's bankruptcies and bailouts. And they've been doing this for decades. They've been doing it since about the 50s, over and over and over and over and over. Guess what they keep doing? They keep flipping the planes to other buyers. You know who's responsible for the maintenance on an airplane? As soon as the engines are started and it's taking off, the pilot. The pilot is responsible for every piece of maintenance that's been done to that plane. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? So Porter owns airplanes, so they don't give a fuck about none of this. They just park them.
BMO, the men's national soccer team in Cap.
No, I'm trying to find out how many people got COVID in Ontario today. They won't tell us.
Technology enabled more accurate TCM diagnosis, which used to rely on observing, listening, questioning, and feeling the pulse. As TCM veterinary practice gains popularity in China, experts say they are confident the field in China will soon align with global standards.
That was Feng Yilei reporting. The biggest motor show in Germany is underway in Munich. Ryan Thompson reports.
Wow, you're all
It's
over
been
the
nearly
place.
2 years since the world's up-and-coming cars shined under the bright lights. But after a coronavirus hiatus, Germany's world-famous auto showcase is back. Mercedes presented its luxurious EQS. BMW highlighted the engine power inside the new iX. But the real star of the show all around, electric engines.
This year's auto show is a stark change from the past. It's clear that internal combustion engines are out.
It's clear. It's obviously not clear when you keep yelling it at us and you haven't made it clear. The problem is piston and crank engines, really, and gasoline with the spark plugs and all that. The MMT and the gasoline.
With the Chief Medical Officer of Health, include mandatory self-screening, improved air quality with filtration, and increased cleaning of surfaces. Learn more about
Improved air
school
quality
safety
with filtration.
improvements at
80% of the schools do not have ventilation systems.
paid for by the Government of Ontario.
This is Richie. Good evening. There's going to be something missing at 2 new Whole Food stores opening next year. Cashiers. Amazon, which owns the grocery chain, said that it will bring cashierless technology to Whole Foods for the first.
Now remember, 2 years ago they told us this Amazon cashier list thing was this is how it's going to be, period. Did it happen? We had the perfect opportunity for it. Did it happen? No. Much like I've got the article up here somewhere, the Sidewalk Labs here in Toronto. Right. Oh, this will make money. It's good. Then how come you're running away as soon as we ask you to do it? Goofle. Yes, the alphabet. Like the alphabet agencies. Right. You guys are really, really bad at this. You guys are really bad at this. So that's that. There's earned, what they call it, coverage or whatever, and there's paid media attention. They just paid for that. Rogers, a company that owns your cell phone, yes, they own it, your internet connection, half the radio stations and half the newspapers and half the TV stations, right?
And they find a very good innovative solution to other problems. So there's absolutely any kind of legitimacy to be here.
But these two brands will join a crowded field that's filled with other Chinese EV automakers that are vying for European customers' loyalty. The hope among all
they're just vying
is that they
for
can
sales.
win over enough
You got it backwards. The Chinese companies aren't looking for loyalty. You got it backwards. They're just looking for sales. The German companies are looking for your loyalty. The Chinese companies are brand new. They don't give a fuck.
8 cents US. The top stories are straight ahead, moments away on 680 News.
Hi, it's Fido. Life's back, and that calls with great deals. Whether you're going back to the office, gym, or restaurant.
So Fido Microcell Solutions, also owned by Rogers, and as a separate third arm's length company or whatever, they buy their airtime off of Rogers, right?
Megan with you. Stay with us here on the Beijing Hour.
We're trying to.
And now, OLG has taken lightning and turned it into a lottery. We call it Lightning Lotto. A $125,000 jackpot keeps growing until it's won. Buy a ticket on the spot, and you could win big.
Ontario Lottery Gaming Corp.
New Lightning Lotto in store today. You don't strike the jackpot strikes you.
So better night on the way than last night. Cloudy, 20 degrees. Overnight mainly clear, down to 14. Tomorrow morning, some clouds, 17. Tomorrow afternoon, more clouds, chance of light showers, and 21. Downtown Toronto, a few clouds, 22. 680 News Time, 7:30.
Toronto's #1 for breaking news, traffic, and weather. This is 680 News.
This is Wednesday, September 8th. Good evening. I'm Christine Ritchie.
I'm Scott Burnett. Here's what's making news right now.
A hockey tournament in Peel with kids between the ages 10 and 11 years old competing is the latest event to see a COVID-19 exposure.
Strategy will be key for party leaders in tonight's French language debate, and while we can expect a lot of attacks over wedge issues like gun control and vaccines, experts say don't expect any knockout punches.
Starting a new school year off with a bang, but officials say the first weekend of college and university parties has already raised safety concerns.
The OPP say a GTA driver with only his G1 license has been charged in connection with a stunt driving incident. Police say they nabbed a motorist going 211 kilometers an hour on the 404 near Queensville Side Road.
The Blue Jays are taking on the Yankees right now in New York, and Canada is about to kick off with El Salvador in the World Cup qualifiers. Sports at 45. Disney stock keeps rising amid the success of a big superhero action-adventure movie. Stocks fall in the midweek trade, and Lululemon impresses with earnings. Business at 56.
Today news time, 7:31.
Time for traffic.
Isn't Lululemon the one that lied about what their shit was made out of, and then it turns out it was made out of Subway bread dough or something?
With neighboring countries after entering Kabul, but the key is to put them into practice. There are two key points. First is to be inclusive, and second is to resolutely fight terrorism.
A Chinese official added that neighboring countries are willing to help Afghanistan out of chaos and called on Iran, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan to exert a positive influence on the basis of respecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Afghanistan. Wang Yi also announced at the meeting that China will provide 200 million yuan, or around $31 million worth of food supplies and medical aid, including COVID-19 vaccines.
Yeah, you spent about 20 cents per person. Wow, you're such great people.
with bank shops.
You just bought your way to
supermarkets,
heaven with 20
businesses
cents.
reopening.
Wow.
Ding Xiaolong heads a subsidiary of China Harbor Engineering Company in the West African country. He says that the main market in Conakry is back in business, with stalls stocking their normal supplies.
There's no scramble resulting from a shortage of supplies. Prices.
So Beijing Hour covered the stories 2 or 3 times. It's like mandatory vaccine fucking protest thing going on in Kenya. So that, just to go to the store, you have to have a vaccine passport. Really? You don't have running water and electricity. You're going to come out with something like that, right? You don't know how to keep hold of your country, bro.
Natasha Ramsahai. 14 degrees tonight, mainly clear skies. We will see the sun early in the morning, increasing cloud. Areas to the north will start getting into some on and off showers mid-morning. It's going to be a late afternoon shower event for Toronto. Really light, trace to a millimeter at most, and a high of 21 degrees. Tonight, down to a low of 14 degrees.
Right now in downtown Toronto, partly cloudy and 22. 680 News Time, 7:33.
Breaking news this hour. Peel Public Health out with a warning tonight, advising anyone who attended a 3-day hockey tournament at the end of August to get tested for COVID-19 after an outbreak of the virus.
680's Michelle Martin joins us live now with word that the majority of those attending, or taking part rather, were under the age of 12. Michelle.
Scott, if you attended the hockey tournament at the CAA Center and Meadowvale 4 Rinks Arena over August 27th to the 29th, Peel Public Health says there's been an exposure of COVID-19. The health unit says all of the participants in the tournament were between the ages 10 and 11. It says teams came from
Well, they
Toronto,
can't be between the ages of 10 and 11 because there's no age in between there. You're, again, really bad at English. You people that scream that everyone else has to speak English are the worst at speaking it.
In an email to 680 News, it says the health unit has a total of 8 confirmed cases at this time, and most appear to have been acquired from this tournament. The public health unit is now urging everyone who attended the Bronco Academy Toronto Exhibition Series hockey tournament to get immediate testing, even those who are fully vaccinated. And if symptoms develop, you're being
But you've already told them they don't have to wear a mask. They don't have to wash their hands. They can spit in niggers' faces, and you'll back them up.
And this latest
That's what
outbreak
you've told
coming
them,
on the
apparently.
heels as post-secondary students just returned to university and college campuses, with some
Waving at
schools
the
seeing
street.
thousands gathering to party this past long weekend. And that scenario is now raising safety concerns. 680 Stuart
Those
begin
parties are
explains
still
why.
ongoing. I
We're
think I
still in
shared
the
those.
middle of the pandemic, but the long weekend was evidence that there's little to be done if a large group of students
Contribution to the UN and its role in global governance. Speakers at the event praised China's role in the UN since its seat was restored, including it resolving various regional and global issues. China's become the country that sent the largest number of peacekeepers to UN peacekeeping operations. Recently, China's played an important
largest
role in the global fight
contributor of
against
human power,
COVID-19, providing
and
more
money.
than 450 million doses of much-needed vaccines to roughly 100 countries. A university textbook has been published on Xi Jinping thought on the rule of law. The 20-chapter book will serve as a key teaching material for university and college law students. The publisher
In
says
China?
the book
Well, then it's
represents the
useless.
latest adaptation of Marxism to the Chinese context, an important component of Xi Jinping thought on socialism with
But
Chinese
Xi
characteristics
Jinping is
for a new
neither
era,
Marx nor
and
Mao.
a fundamental
Xi.
guideline for law-based governance in all areas. This is Shane Bigham live from the Chinese capital. Coming up in business, China's central bank vows to maintain its prudent monetary policy.
The last throws. How do they say it? Throw? THROES or whatever. No, it's China. Nothing will happen to him. But yeah, he's on the bottom, isn't he?
they promote their policies and slam their opponents.
The issue will really be to try to...
He's doing all the same shit every leader before him did before getting fucked up. You gotta worship me. I'm the... You rewrote Marxism as though it was from Xi Jinping? Why? That makes no sense. You've just created a book that will make all of these students useless when they go out into the world to argue law.
It's also slipped. Market observer John Terrett has more.
It's a down day. Dow down 1/5 of 1%, 68 points. Third day in a row it's been lower. NASDAQ, which has been on a bit of a tear, On Wednesday, down 0.6%, 87 points, ending a 4-day winning streak. And the S&P 500 down 1/13%. Materials, energy, utilities, all lower, down 5 points on the day, third day lower. But the S&P is only about 20% away from, well, that's to say 1% away from its all-time high, and it's up 20% for the year. So things ain't that bad, not really. On to Europe now, down day there as well. London 0.7%, Germany 1.4%, France 0.8%.
Now it's market observer John Terra. Johns Hopkins University reports that there have been more than 40 million COVID-19 cases across the U.S. as of Wednesday afternoon, with over 650,000 fatalities. Official data shows that the average daily increase of cases in the country was over 140,000 in the 7-day period ending on Tuesday. Chinese markets closed lower yesterday. Analyst Timothy Pope has more.
The Chinese onshore markets eased back a bit after their gains earlier in the week. The Shanghai Composite ended the day pretty much flat, almost entirely unchanged. Despite a range-bound but choppy session, the tech and healthcare-heavy China export, though, slipped by about 1%. Power companies were leading the gains after the start of a trial program which will allow distributors in some provinces to buy electricity directly from renewables projects. That trial was billed as a big step towards China's carbon neutrality goals, and Xinhua reported that more than 8 billion kilowatt hours of clean electricity was bought yesterday, which should result in a fair bit of carbon not being emitted. Among the power producers rising were Windtime Energy up by about 7%. China National Nuclear Power was up by the 10% daily limit, and Huadian Power was up by 5%. But gains for this sector were offset by losses, particularly among consumer staples. The heavyweight liquor makers like Multi were falling. Multi itself was down more than 2%. This stock is having a fairly hard time regaining some momentum, looking fairly range-bound, more than 35% below its all-time high, which it hit in February of this year.
And that was market analyst Timothy Pope in Shanghai. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index closed down by 0.1%. In Singapore, the Straits Times Index was down 1.2%. In Japan, the Nikkei closed up by 0.9%. Chinese markets were mixed yesterday as central bank policymakers vowed to maintain prudent monetary policy and not resort to a flood of stimulus.
Predicts the price will not change at midnight, staying at $1.38.9 a liter at most GTA stations. A look at your drive and the forecast coming up in 60 seconds.
Says current conditions may not require as much liquidity as before to keep interest rates stable. China's trade data for the first 8 months of the year has defied expectations, with exports rising 23% and imports up 24% despite COVID-19 outbreaks. With more on this, we're joined by financial analyst Cao Zhan. Good morning, and what's your reading of the statements from China's central bank officials?
Well, what I read from it is the fact that inflationary pressure is rising. We have seen a spike in a variety of commodity prices. Right now, a lot of manufacturers have higher input costs, and they're absorbing the rising costs. But sooner or later, they would have to pass on the added cost to consumers. So I think PBOC is sensitive to this surge in inflation and wants to make sure that they continue to pursue a prudent monetary policy to prevent a spiraling inflation.
So yes, the central bank is maintaining that prudent policy stance, but in your opinion, what else has informed this move?
And the fact that the trade data is very strong. We're already seeing very strong export growth and import growth year on year. And the latest spike